So, concluding remarks. We'll have a look at some conclusions from this series of videos on HDR supervisory practice, and in particular a communication perspective on it. What I've wanted to convey to you is that there should be an alternative conception of dissertation development, not one which reflects the order in which the institution might want to see progress being made. We need to question what passes as standard bureaucratic supervisory practice. By all means, if you're inexperienced and unsure about HDR supervision, you should follow this practice because it's safe. It's safe institutionally and it's safe for you. But it doesn't guarantee that a dissertation is going to be completed, and neither efficiently, in other words, on time, or effectively. I also want, in this alternative conception of dissertation development, to implore you to reflect on your own supervisory experiences. This is the way to learn about how to be a better supervisor, by reflecting honestly on situations that you find yourself in, both with the student and also between yourselves and other supervisors on the team. Another important thing to emphasise is that wherever you work and whichever faculty you work in, develop supportive HDR supervision cultures. Most supervision cultures in universities are extremely poor and have the effect of isolating HDR students. Partly this is because supervisors simply don't pay attention to this important aspect of the life of a student in a HDR program. There are, on occasion, various kinds of authorised or mandated semi-professional and sometimes social occasions outside of supervisory sessions, and these can be used to bootstrap the development of a supportive HDR supervisory culture within a faculty or a unit. But how these are judged by actual candidates depends on the range of different issues that they have. Is this the only occasion when HDR students meet? Are they otherwise in isolation from the faculty? Do they feel it? Do they feel included? Or will they view any efforts to support HDR supervision culture development as tokenistic? From time to time, faculties try to create supportive environments for HDR students, the occasional pizza venue to eat and meet with academic staff. And this must be considered to be a safe place for HDR students. It's important also that there be a budget and a plan and some high-level support from the faculty to this, for this kind of activity to occur. And it's unlikely to work if most HDR students are part-timers, and it requires the engagement of supervisors and staff and HDR candidates. It's also important to understand what kind of supervisory culture you have, whether it's type 1 or type 2. Now, I've had an example of this working overseas, and I did encounter a problem when trying to set up a safe, independent place for HDR students to meet. A colleague and I got funding from a faculty to set up a program that enabled HDR students to meet up in an alternative safe space. We provided them with food, enabled them to mix with each other and exchange experiences. But this program instantly met with resistance and was quickly shut down by a small number of powerful professors who were quite scared that what they had been doing with their students would be shared amongst other faculty members and other HDR candidates. So this is why it's very important to make sure that the faculties fully support this particular kind of initiative, otherwise it will fail, and not because of the students, the candidates. It'll fail because of the other faculty members. Another concluding remark I'd make is always attempt to develop yourself as a supportive HDR supervisor. Your supervisory culture influences the way a supervisory team works, but more important is your behaviour during the supervision. That also influences how the team works as a whole. Your behaviour affects and influences students much more than you think, but you should be attempting to create a safe and supportive environment for students to operate in. Even if you think that your candidates are not good candidates, you should help them realise their dream, not yours. but it's best if you both get something positive out of the candidature. You're better off being known as a great supervisor to have on the team, and it's also a good idea to be a great leader of supervision teams. So reflect on how you perform and try to be a better supervisor. Recently, I had an experience where I was brought into a supervision team because a student had been humiliated and demoralised by 2 ECR supervisors. The reality was that the student wanted to do their research as a monograph. The eager ECR supervisors wanted to get publications and were really trying to force the student into a PhD by publication. I, as an experienced supervisor, lost immediate respect for these otherwise excellent ECR supervisors. The student was correct in this case. You should be working towards their dream, not yours. I believe it's important, if you want to be a good supervisor, to develop your own set of standard supervisory practices. And by that I mean reflect on your own experiences and try and codify those experiences into actions that you perform when you supervise. Now, despite similar research questions, theories and methods, all supervisions are unique. The mix of team members is unique, and the progression through the dissertation is not independent of the various kinds of contexts that shape it, which is why we were talking about supervision as communication throughout, but we also emphasise the particular kinds of role relationships that occur during it. Abandoning a traditional view of supervision promotes innovation in the supervisory process. So I would suggest that you try to be innovative within limits. Each supervisory meeting is an important opportunity to develop deep and rewarding relationships with the student and with other staff. Another factor to take into account is the significance of supervision for your career progression. HDR supervision is a long game, and as a supervisor you need to be patient. Even if you have a fast completion, that reward takes 3 years. It is actually most likely to be 4 years full-time or 6 years part-time. Not infrequently, students run overtime and require extensions. A number of students won't make it, and many don't make it through easily. Others require a lot of patient, heavy lifting. Don't necessarily rely on students to help you as a HDR supervisor to get publications, because getting multiple good publications is also a long game as well. If you have enough students and a balance of full-time and part-time HDR candidates, you can achieve completions and publications and also develop over time a good reputation as a supervisor. Your PhD students can help amplify what you do and the diversity of it across different disciplines. You won't get a better kind of andragogy to excel at. Yet that's what it is. It's also professional development for academics. The more you know about research, the more you can develop as a researcher. As well as a form of mentoring, it also counts as research. When I worked in the UK as a reader, I was required to successfully complete a year-long reflective practice HDR supervision program. Each trainee was involved in a live supervision as a kind of apprentice. The program worked, and as far as I could tell, it turned out good, competent supervisors. But I was not surprised to hear that this system had been abandoned as simply too expensive for the institution. There must be other ways in which institutions can trap experiences in order to help out other supervisors. Tertiary institutions must develop a culture of continuous improvement. In finding out about Scrum and working through its application to HDR supervision, I came across the idea of lean thinking. Lean thinking is ultimately about creating a learning organisation. Improvement without focus on learning is not lean thinking. The concept of a lean organisation comes from the work of Peter Senge that we've seen also in the context of causal loop diagrams. To implement lean thinking, we need to develop a learning system of some kind. These kinds of ideas, continuous improvement and learning, seem to be applicable to improving HDR supervision practices. How can we develop such a system, social and technical system? We can do this by using parts of the social system, that is supervisory story, supervisory pattern, genre theory, together with learning management systems that we're all aware of in tertiary institutions, as a kind of technical part of the system. And hopefully through the combination of these social and technical ideas, we can produce a HDR supervision community of practice. Thank you for your attention.